Grace and peace, everybody. We're back. You saw the thumbnail. You saw the title. We got to talk about that doggone protest at that church back in January because things are looking bad. The protesters and the leaders of that protest, they're down bad, y'all. They're down bad. But this is actually something more breaking. Church Congregants sues the alleged Minnesota church protesters. I don't know why they're using alleged. They were protesting. I mean, that's just it. They were, I call them rioters, but let's just be honest. Let's keep it going. The complaint alleges protesters at City's Church in St. Paul, including former CNN anchor Don Lemon, needs to be in jail, interfered with the plaintiff's religious freedom. All right, let's go. A St. Paul, Minnesota church member has filed a federal lawsuit alleging that the group of people, including journalist Don Lemon and activist Nekima Levy Armstrong, remember that name, we'll be talking about her in a moment, unlawfully disrupted a service last month as part of a coordinated political demonstration. The complaint filed by Ann Dorsett in the U.S. District Court for Minnesota alleges that on January 18th, demonstration of the city's church interfered with her ability to worship and caused her to suffer damages, including emotional distress and trauma. You know what? I don't like this therapy language, but my goodness, in the morning, they're taking full advantage of it. Alleges the January 18th demonstration at City's church interfered with her ability to worship and caused her to suffer damages, including emotional distress and trauma. In addition to the Armstrong and Lemon, the former CNN anchor, the complaint names journalists Georgia Fort, the activist Will Kelly, Jerome Richardson, Terren Cruz, and Jamal Lundy. Okay, Jamel Lundy. It also names St. Paul School Board member Chantel Allen. Wow, they are getting them all. They said, look, stand up, take these L's, y'all. Get these L's. They're handing out L's left and right. Dorsett and 7 of the defendants did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Dorsett filed the complaint without an attorney. In an email statement on the CNN, and NBC News crew denied the lawsuit's allegations with empathy and compassion. The lawsuit accuses the group of civil conspiracy, aiming to and abetting intentional infliction of emotional distress, interference with religious exercise, and trespassing. I mean, in a sane world, or if this were the other side of the discussion, we wouldn't even be having this. They would have already been in jail. As a result of the defendants' actions, the worship service was disrupted. Congregants experienced fear and distress, and plaintiff's ability to freely exercise her religion in a private place of worship was unlawfully interfered with, the lawsuit states. I mean, where's the lie? All 8 defendants also face federal charges of conspiracy against the rights of religious freedom at the place of worship and interfering with the exercise of the right of a religious freedom. Lemon has pled not guilty, of course he did, to all charges, saying outside of court, I wanted to say this isn't just about me. This is about all journalists, especially in the United States. Fort, Cruz, Lundy pled not guilty and were released on bond, according to the Associated Press. In his latest legal actions tied to protests in the Twin City, where tensions remain over the Trump administration's immigration crackdown and the fatal shooting of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, according to the lawsuit, the demonstrators engaged in coordinated conduct by organizing meetings ahead of the Operation Pull Up protest and promoting it on social media. The lawsuit alleges that on the morning of January 18th, a coordinated group of people entered the city's church, halting the worship service and chanting "Ice out, hands up, don't shoot," while obstructing aisles. Protesters could be seen confronting the pastor and congregants in a menacing manner. The lawsuit saying their chanting and aggressive gestures cause severe emotional distress, fear, anxiety, trauma, and cause children terror. I mean, they would have said the exact same thing if it was the other way around. If it were the other way around, they would have done that. take advantage of it. I'm sorry. Demonstrators gathered at the church because they said its pastor, David Easterwood, was an acting director of an ICE field office in the city. The lawsuit says Lemon was arrested in January in California and accused of violating the federal civil rights law after he covered the protest on January 18th. I think they need to stop saying he wasn't there to cover. He was a part of the protest. He was part of it. He just happened to have a camera. He just filmed his activities. He filmed what he did. He self-snitched, but he was there as a protester. He wasn't there as a journalist or anything else. He was a part of the planning of it. He was released on a personal recognizance bond before a federal grand jury in Minnesota returned the indictment against him and 8 co-defendants, all of whom are also named in Doset's lawsuit. All right, there's Miss Nekima Armstrong. We're going to talk about her in a second. In the lawsuit, Doset alleges that Lemon specifically live streamed, the protest, noting congregants' fear and distress, and appeared to take satisfaction in the disruption. I mean, he said it. This is what he said, this is what we're here for. This is what happens. He said that. Levy Armstrong, a Minnesota-based civil rights attorney activist, was also arrested in her participation in the St. Paul protest. Her arrest drew national attention after the White House shared doctored photos on social media in which she appeared to be crying. Okay, hold on. What did they do? Let me see. So this is the picture that they shared. Shout out to the White House. They be trolling, man. They be trolling. Okay. They just be trolling. Shout out to them for sure. All right, let's get into it. So, shout out to Robert Guevara, Esquire. He was talking about this, and I'm just going to let him tease it out because this is a great segment. And he goes over the lawsuit where Nekima Armstrong, gets the book thrown at her. Let's go.
The church attacker, Nekima Levy Armstrong, loses again. She's very unhappy that she has some release conditions set upon her after she invaded and attacked the Christian church, thinking that she was a hero. She's been charged alongside Don Lemon and other individuals, and they got different release conditions than her. And so she's been fighting the court to reverse this so that she can have, I guess, a little bit more freedom and privilege that she thinks she's entitled to. There's been a back and forth, and yesterday we saw the court come down and say, sorry, Nekima, you lose. And here's the back and forth. So she submitted this in a basic appeal. So she objected to the magistrate judge who said, I'm going to put some conditions on you. I'm not just going to let you go out on your own recognizance. You've got to check in with probation and let us know certain things. She did not like that. Probably a little too oppressive for her. So she appealed it, and the judge, the main federal judge, responded. But here was her argument. She says, all right, court, I'm Nekima. Don't you know who I am? We're now demanding that you reconsider what you've done. The order denying our modification was clearly erroneous. It was a text-only one-line order, and there was no rationale for why you denied me in the first place. And you failed to grant a modification. Many people agreed to it, and we wanted Levy Armstrong's husband to keep firearms at home. So the judge, and the failure to provide any rationale, says that you, hired judge, should now review the whole thing. We are submitting this motion. Please help me, Nekima. Now, she says, I originally pointed out that after the court imposed numerous onerous conditions, it declined to put those conditions on 3 co-defendants. All of them were released without any of these restrictions. And we asked the judge to modify it. Lower magistrate judge denied the motion. The court subsequently declined to impose any other conditions on new defendants. And so there's no rational basis for treating Miss Levy Armstrong, probably racism, right, differently than any of her other 5 co-defendants, okay? She's got no prior criminal record. She's lived in Minnesota for 23 years. She has a husband and kids here. She operates businesses. She's a licensed attorney, which is just embarrassing. Former law professor at University of St. Thomas. Oh my gosh. For 14 years, and a prominent community leader. She presents no danger of any kind. And the government said, well, actually, you are different. Sorry, Nekima. And she says, no, they're wrong. The government pointed to allegations in the affidavit that she was the organizer or the leader. And here she says, so what? My leadership in this church invasion is irrelevant. That has nothing to do with whether I'm a danger to the community at all. So she says it's critical to recognize that unlike a more typical federal case, she is not accused of being the leader of a drug trafficking conspiracy or a gang. I would disagree with that one. A fraud ring or a terrorism plot. Actually, you guys are literal insurrectionists. who are opposing the enforcement of federal law, or anything that would normally be considered criminal or dangerous. She was the leader of a non-violent political protest. She's begging. There is no dangerousness. There's no risk of flight. It's fundamentally wrong and a constitutional affront to label her as dangerous for exercising her First Amendment rights. To the contrary, she's a respected community leader. That means she's not a danger and she's not a flight risk. So the government came out. They gave a proffer at the IA, the initial appearance, saying that she is not willing to comply with basic conditions. She says, I don't even know what they're talking about. Then the government says that she was actually hiding out in a hotel with another co-defendant. They were all on notice. Looks like they were packing their bags to escape. But they say, so what? None of that is enough evidence for imposing stricter conditions of release. The court then imposed certain conditions, and these conditions are simply not necessary for her. She will appear, missing an A in that word, spell check, hello, and the safety of any person or community given her exemplary and law-abiding life and accomplishments and stature in the community. She's so amazing. So there's no basis for restricting her travel outside of Minnesota. She wants to leave. Regularly leaves to go to community activism events. And why should she have to check in with probation? There's no basis or concern that she won't come back here. She's responsible, blah, blah, blah. Now, while she has no intention of possessing a firearm, her husband owns a firearm, and the court and probation said, sorry, he's got to get rid of it. So don't deny the husband the Second Amendment right. Well, so in conclusion, she continues, and she's going to lose this. The court correctly denied restrictive conditions for her co-defendants. They got nice release conditions. And so now I should be similar. So I request the court release her on her own recognizance, signed by her lawyer, Jordan Kushner. Then the court ruled on it. And here's what they said. All right, here's the order. Coming down from the real judge, not the magistrate judge called Doug Miko, whose wife works for Attorney General Keith Ellison, who had a podcast with Don Lemon. They say, all right, this matter comes before the court on appeal of this decision to deny her motion. After a full review, de novo, on a brand new set of eyes on it, the court will adopt the decision as modified. So she was initially charged by criminal complaint with conspiracy against rights. In brief, the U.S. alleges that on the morning of Sunday at 10:30, a group of 30 to 40 agitators working together in a coordinated manner entered a church in St. Paul during a religious service and engaged in conduct that disrupted the religious service, intimidated, harassed, oppressed, terrorized the parishioners, including young children, caused the service to be cut short. Parishioners fled out the side door. One female victim fell and broke her arm. They also identify her as the apparent organizer, the leader. Since that time, Levy has been charged by indictment. 2 counts of the following: conspiracy against rights and interfering with the exercise of religious freedom. After she made her initial appearance, the lower judge, Miko, ordered her release conditions to have the following. She needs to submit to supervision by pretrial services, which she is going to hate. She has to remain in Minnesota unless a supervising officer with pretrial approves this. She must comply with the no contact list, no firearms or destructive devices, and report any interactions with the law enforcement back to the court. So the government appealed the release order from Miko. Okay, they wanted her actually in custody. The government says, don't let her out. This is ridiculous, period. If a defendant is ordered released by a magistrate judge, the lower judge, on conditions, the defendant may challenge those. In considering the challenges, the court can review the record, and we can review it de novo. Now, the Bail Reform Act does say that you need to impose conditions that are the least restrictive conditions that are going to make sure the person comes back to court. You want to preserve the presumption of innocence so people by default are not just locked up or have onerous conditions on them. But here, the court is not persuaded by Nekima and her arguments, and we're not eliminating these conditions. As an initial matter, Levy does not dispute that she's the leader, doesn't even say she wasn't. So effectively then, she concedes that she is not similarly situated to the other three. It's not racism at all. You were the leader. They weren't. Rather, Levy is more similarly situated to Alan Chantel, who is also identified as a leader, and she's supposed to have the same conditions as she does. And although now Nekima argues that her status as an alleged leader is irrelevant, courts actually regularly consider a defendant's alleged leadership role in a crime who want to be released. Moreover, all of the conditions that she challenges are standard. They're relatively non-invasive, and they're regularly imposed on defendants who are charged with a felony. Indeed, in 2024, says the judge, the release condition ordered most often in federal courts was exactly this: pretrial services supervision. 87% of defendants got this. Also, a no contact list is common, and although she wants to travel freely for work, pretrial releasees must suffer certain burdens that ordinary citizens do not. You can go to jail if you don't like it and sit in custody the entire time, such as the requirement they get permission from the court to travel outside. These requirements are unquestionably related to the government's special need to ensure that she does not abscond. And the government has also pointed this out. She's not prohibited from traveling. All she has to do is go get permission for it. And so the court therefore affirmed confirms Miko's denial of Nekima's motion to eliminate her conditions, but they're going to modify it in one condition. Husband can have a firearm, saying the husband may retain his guns, but Nekima, don't you even think of touching it. Don't even look at it. If Levy demonstrates a pattern of compliance, she may then modify these in the future, but for now, Nekima, the church attacker, loses, saying her appeal is sustained in part only as to the gun and overruled in part, and the order denying her motion to modify is adopted as modified, signed off on by the U.S. district judge called Laura M. Provenzino. And I don't know what Nekima's going to say about this. Maybe she'll invade another church, but she loses. Nekima wanted to get out of any culpability and be roaming around free on her own recognizance, but that is denied. You have to keep calling pretrial services, and if you want to leave, better get permission to do it. Otherwise, you're in violation of a court order. But of course, last night at the State of the Union, we had other representatives from Minnesota, including this one, Ilhan Omar, acting like this in front of the whole world to see, and here is what it sounded like.
Sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
You should be ashamed. You should be ashamed
of yourself.
Exactly right. Shame on Nekima. Shame on Ilhan. Shame on Rashida Tlaib, who was in there with her F-ICE pin on there. Illegal aliens must go, and we're not going to stand for invasions of our churches and the defrauding of the American public. So Ilhan Omar and the rest of them look like they're about to cry because they realize the grift is over.
All right. Shout out for sure. This was good. I'm going to leave the link down below for you to check out. We will be following up with the case against Don Lemon. That's one of the other cases we want to keep our eye on, whether it goes long or short, whether he gets the book thrown at him or not. I just want to know what happens. And I want to see what the court thinks about the invasion of a church space by protesters. So anyway, let me know what you think. Comment down below. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for helping us hit our goal of 100,000 before the end of April. I'm looking forward to celebrating with you all. So until next time, everybody, grace and peace. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the JWhit Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please do me a favor and hit me up with that 3-piece special. Like the video, subscribe, and of course, share it with somebody who would also enjoy this type of content. And make sure you leave a comment because I do pin the best comments to the top. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace.